Greetings, Minecrafters, and welcome to episode 58, I think. The home as who we are and not who we ought to be. So, perhaps because it's mid April, and I think, a lot of us are doing a little bit of spring cleaning, here and there, maybe a closet taking on an extra room. Maybe we've noticed there's a lot of extra clutter in the house. A lot of us are moving around and you're making changes, and even, we'll say other animals, the rest of the animal kingdom is kind of doing the same thing, changing and building. In fact, I was on my way home from teaching just yesterday, and there was a bird flying above carrying this huge branch that seemed like it had to outweigh the bird. But I thought to myself, we're really not that different, especially because we're in the middle of a huge renovation, or reno, as the cool and fun say. And so even if you're currently, maybe not in your dream home or even your dream apartment, and you maybe you're in a small space temporarily or not so temporarily or whatever, this discussion is going to fit for anyone, because we can make whatever space represent where we are right now, at least in some ways. Might not be ideal, but there isn't any reason that we can't make our home space more homey, more relaxing, more of a self-expression of who we are, and not reside in the past or reside in the future, but just reside, right now in who we currently are. I'll tell you, I bought a book years ago. I want to say it's almost 2 decades. I'd have to look into when she actually kicked it out. But Sarah Bon Brednick, she's author of Simple Abundance, and it's a fantastic book. It's seemingly a little more geared to women, but I think really it works for anyone. And it's a day book, so there's different, and she has themes. And so the one for May is all about home decoration and self-expression and creativity, feng shui, decluttering, all that. So I think this is such a good place to reside for right now. And in one of the little snippets she has a quote by Ralph Lauren. I love this. She says, or he says, "When friends enter a home, they sense its personality and character, the family's style of living. These elements make a house come alive with a sense of identity, a sense of energy, enthusiasm, and warmth, declaring, 'This is who we are, this is how we live.'" It can work for anyone, because I'm thinking of my beloved and I have been married for 30-ish years. I'm not great with the math, but something like that. And when we first were married and we were living in a small apartment in Virginia, we didn't have much, but each other and our love, as they say. And we had our oldest son, Ryan, pretty quickly. We still made our little apartment. When I look back, I wasn't thinking of this then at all. I was just kind of moving around, and we put up family pictures right away. And we both love entertaining, and I don't mean to sound like the Kennedys, and we're on a yacht and finger food, pinkies out, and all of that. We just like people, and I like to think we're very warm and inviting, and that's followed us all the way, 30 years later, into a nicer, bigger home. And when I look back, the expression, the stuff, the content, the furniture, that all has changed over the last 30 years, though the energy really hasn't, because we're still who we are in that way. So we still, the furniture tends to be inviting, and we tend to, we've got happy things around, and we both like things open, lots of window. That part hasn't changed. And as far as motivation, everybody's got their own drive. And if you take any of these strengths-based assessments, and I've taken a bunch of, strength scope is probably my favorite, because that one, you can look that up if you Google it. That one, when you take it, it doesn't get into like what you do great and what you suck at. It's more about what excites you, what gets you just so excited, and what's a little bit more draining. And draining doesn't mean you suck at it. You can do it. Maybe you just don't like it. It doesn't fill you up. And let's say, for me, it's details and Google Docs. Google Docs just hurt my head. So it's good to know that, because if I'm working on a task with someone, I can then move it along to a colleague who likes details, and they're running with it because that excites them. Whereas I'm more of a big sky person, and creativity, is a huge motivator for me. I can't even think of anything more. I mean, I'm making a difference in the world. I have a lot of them, but creativity is really, I'd like once I hone in on something new and shiny, I'm just zoom right there. And creativity can really roll into just about anything. And certainly the home decorators of the world know how that can roll into a home, or no matter what that home looks like. And though I'm not a home decorator, I'm huge into self-expression. I love self-expression with clothes. I also love to cook, and I cook kind of in my own way, dance to my own beat in general. And I guess maybe because I'm in this mode, we just decided, we meaning me, the husband's kind of going along with it, and when I decided to reno the upstairs here, I just like went for broke, and I don't mean money wise. I mean just knocking through the walls, because now all of a sudden I'm literally sitting in this upstairs of our house, looking through to one room to the next with 2x4s. Everything's out of it, and this is actually motivating me to be on this new track to minimalism. I don't know that honestly if I'll come out of it as a monk. I'm gonna guess probably not. Though I'm in it now that everything's out, I'm only going to put back in or bring back in what I absolutely love. Like it's got to do it for me. It's got to light a spark, or it's going to be set outside by the trash, or given away. It's going to find a new place. It'll bring someone else joy. Um, I am in self-express feng shui declutter mode. So this one makes me chuckle. Sarah von Bredneck talks about her own one of our own little snippet stories here. She says, shortly after my husband and I were married, my parents moved to a smaller home in a different state and began divesting themselves of furniture and belongings. Because of my love of Victoriana, my mother gave me my grandmother's 19th century front parlor suite, a love seat, and two chairs, which she had purchased at an auction in 1921 at the Ritz Hotel in New York City. Wow. She also gave me a pair of turn of the century china lamps shaped like urns. Oh, I wouldn't like that. The lamps were shaped like urns, which sat on brass pedestal bases and were nearly 4 feet high. They were forest green with gold leaf trim and featured a huge pink calla lily in the center. Oh my. And Sarah says the lamps were hideous, but it took me years to open my eyes and realize it. And of course, it sounds cliche because it is, but when people say beauty is in the eye of the beholder, that's so true. And even if we once ourselves thought something was beautiful, when we're a decade older, then 2 decades older, then 3 decades older, that wedding gift from Aunt so and so may have just, lost its luster, as they say. And sometimes people get so wrapped up in guilt, and the person may not even be on this earth anymore. It's, oh, I have to hang on to it. They don't care. They're not even here. And the thing is, things, gifts, and such can also just no longer fit, like a pair of shoes, or the soles have worn off or whatever like that. It's time to just get rid of them. And it can whatever, isn't working for us anymore, if it's in good shape, might bring all kinds of joy to somebody else. So this self-expression that we're talking about, that I'm really currently in right now, and I'm a shiny object chaser. So this also has a window. Like Cinderella, when the clock strikes midnight, I'll be done with it and turn into a pumpkin. But right now, I'm in it, and I'm looking for new paint, new everything. It's going to look entirely different. And Sarah continues to say, she said, about this is about the hideous lamps. This authentic awareness came as I was attempting to bring order, the third simple abundance principle, into our lives. I began to do this by wandering through the rooms of our house, dispassionately observing our patterns of living, how we stored things or didn't, what areas became catch alls, where we succumbed to the tendency to take things out but not put them back because it wasn't convenient. Oh my gosh, isn't that so true? Hence the junk drawer. When we're in that split millisecond, like, oh, don't have time for this. Somebody's coming for dinner soon. We'll just throw it here. I'll deal with it later. Of course, later doesn't come, and it just builds and builds and builds. At least for me, as I can only speak for me, that build in the junk drawer and in my surrounding atmosphere builds on me on the inside, and my head just gets heavy with the clutter until I feel like I'm going to implode. That's kind of where I'm at right now. And Sarah continues, she says, during the course of this investigation, I turned my attention, like a detective pursuing a crime scene, to examining decorative objects that surrounded me daily, especially noting their presence and validity. Who lives here? I asked as I began searching for myself. Every time I came into the living room, I found myself recoiling from those lamps. God, they're horrible. I would mutter under my breath and move on. Finally, one day, she said, God's interior decorator said in desperation, Well, get rid of the damn things and stop whining. I mean, so for me, because I'm in this mode right now, surrounded by 2x4s with pieces of sheetrock, like, kind of sort of dangling by the from the ceiling and walls. Trying to, when I moved when we were moving all these things out, all of a sudden you realize there's all this just stuff, and I'm a thrower actually, so that's really a statement. Of course, I'm married to Rat Tattooey, though he's a total pack rat as much as I love him. So the thing is to make two separate piles that as far as for keeping. So one is it's beautiful, and the other one is it brings joy to me, and there may be overlap there. And there really isn't another, well, and there's also the useful category, I guess. We don't want to throw away the couch unless we have a plan. So let's say beautiful brings joy, useful. And the fourth one we're going to keep as a is going to need a lot of attenuating, because if we get into the meaningful, like the sentimental, that's a pack rat catch-all. Oh, I've had this Q-tip since I was in kindergarten, and my best friend gave it to me, and I had it in my pocket all day. Who cares? So we have to be careful with the meaningful category. If it's, one of your kids made their handprint in a ceramic little thing that sits on your dresser, well, then of course, though we really have to be careful with the meaningful. And kind of like also with clothes, as if I haven't worn it in a year because of the four seasons. If you're someplace that doesn't have seasons, you don't even have that excuse, quite honestly, right? So if I haven't worn it in the four seasons through that year, I don't care if it has a price tag on, I don't care if Ralph Lauren himself made it, it's going. So that's another thing. If I haven't worn it, if it's a child thing, if I haven't worn it or played with it, game or whatever, it's gone, 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 gone. Because the thing is, for creativity, we're talking about the home today. It's true in general. Absolutely. I'm a huge creativity person, like I said. So I'm kind of aware of creating that vacuum for whatever it is I'm trying to bring creativity to. And right now it's our house and our home, our fortress, right? Our fortress. There's got to be a vacuum. There's got to be a vacuum, kind of like we were saying last week, actually, with the law of subtraction. It was a different context, but it's not different. In order to invite, not just the paint itself or the new furniture or new used furniture, whatever, not the point, but new to us, whatever. In order for that to, there be an opening for that, we have to get rid of a lot and create this vacuum. And not just for the paint itself, but for the inspiration for the paint too, as well. Because in order to be able to see this new color, to swing out to something new, just to kind of see, in quotes, to see something differently, to see the use of some old table differently, to see an entirely different type of curtain or whatever, we've got to have a vacuum. And the best way to do that, and metaphorically speaking, is a blank canvas. Artists go nutso with a blank canvas. It's like an artist's favorite thing. Well, that's not different for a home. Again, even if it's a studio apartment. And like for us right now, literally as we speak, I'm surrounded by everything stacked everywhere. As soon as we have a string of dry days, it's all going to be going out in the front yard once it's painted, and then only what absolutely brings joy to us or is useful is coming back in. I'm gonna hope that's going to be about 10% of what is in the front yard. And then of course, some of the feng shui principles come in too. So I'm thinking the openness. Some people don't like that. My husband and I both like things open, a lot of light. We're also in northern Vermont, so there's not a lot of light, to begin with. So you kind of want to maximize on that. If you're a solar panel person, good for you as well. And nature. And I'll tell you the honest truth is plants fear me. They if they could run, they would. And still, I keep trying because why not? And I was actually researching a little bit, for at the college where I teach, Champlain, I was doing for my Defense Against the Dark Arts Club with my students. We were doing bonsai tree planting, and who knew when I was researching just how to do this, I landed upon some of the different principles of bonsaiing and the overlap with feng shuiing, and I'm now going to do this. So one of the principles of feng shui or components or whatever is to bring, of course, bring nature in. Apparently, they're not fans of dead flower arrangements, which I used to have and now don't because I got rid of them because of this. Because they're dead. Actually, that's even if they look, people say, "Oh, they look so real," but they're not. And so I got rid of them because, the feng shui wise, it just that's where I am right now, and I got rid of them. So another thing I'm going to do, which was in this research, was placing plants on top of cabinets. And so we're fortunate enough to be swapping our yucky plastic ones out now for actual beautiful red birch ones, which is just, they're not there yet. We've got two actually. And usually, and the principle with the feng shui thing was that typically dust lands on top of cabinets, right? They're above most people's eye level. No one cares. And for me, I definitely don't care. I don't like clutter, but I'm not as much of a stickler with what's above or below my eye level. So if it's kind of like out of sight, out of mind, if there's dust on top of those cabinets, don't know, don't care kind of thing. However, I've had, different things, little, cute little chili peppers in nice bottles out there, to kind of give the kitchen a little pizzazz. So when we had to gut it, we took them all out, and now there's nothing up there. There's nothing, and so I'm going to do this feng shui thing with putting little bonsais and bringing nature into the kitchen, and it's a fabulous thing. And just the very thought of it just lights me right up. It's going to be green and beautiful. And plants, of course, they are life. They're obviously living things, and so they're going to sort of bring with them more life to the kitchen. So, though I do not identify as a home decorator, this is not my calling. My current calling, well, teaching and the Minecraft thing, and well-being, or my calling. And I'll say this is like a little sub calling right now because creativity is definitely my thing. I'm all about it. So currently this is simply the vehicle for creativity, right? And right now I'm all over it. So again, so number one is create the vacuum. They got to declutter to see it. You can't even see it. Well, at least I can, without, an empty. There's got to like just be empty, blank slate canvas. After that, it's good to kind of explore the lighting in your house. And I'll tell you the truth here. It's kind of humbling because I didn't realize how much we'd neglected in this house until we pulled stuff out of there. But the lighting's not good in here. It's terrible in the kitchen. Not, I don't mean just burnt out bulbs. They're just the placement of them, and they're cheap track lights and nothing to write home about, as they say. But they're not efficient. They're not inviting, and so I'm just going to replace them with more inexpensive lights that are, it's not really about money at all. I'm actually very resourceful. It's about the placement of them, where they are, so in sort of juxtaposition to where I'm cooking, which I enjoy. And I think just changing the lighting in the kitchen will have me enjoying far more, enjoying the whole cooking experience. We're talking about small dollars with that, with the track lights and new bulbs, and moving them closer to where the actual, cutting boards and oven are, which I didn't even realize. This has been like 20 years in this kitchen. It didn't even occur to me. So lighting, so declutter, and then just do like a quick eval if it's yourself and a partner or kids or a roommate or whatever, and just kind of evaluate, is there enough light for you? Is there too much light for you? Is the light you have where you want it? Is it natural light versus the kind of light you need at nighttime? And the idea with the feng shui thing, if I understand it correctly, is you want each room to be as inviting as possible. I am paraphrasing to the nth degree here because this is my own interpretation. So that's kind of what I'm doing in this house, is going from each room, not the whole house at once, because that's like gigantic. That's like Mount Everest. Who wants to take that on, right? It hurts my head to think about it. One room at a time. So the thing is, I want to be in there. That's what feng shui is about. I want the room to pull me in. Like I can't wait to go sit on that very simple couch with that little table and that one book and the plant hanging from the ceiling. That just kind of very spa-esque. And the other thing is, of course, color. Whatever colors you're into, and there are certain colors that are more relaxing. I mean, talking from a cognitive psychology standpoint, which is what my doctorate's in. That's very true. Certain colors say certain things. Certain colors are more relaxing than other colors. So, also in your house, if there's a house or apartment, again, we have a larger home now because we've had five lovely young adult children that we've raised. There was we most of our married lives lived in very small spaces. We had a little tiny apartment, followed by a temporary situation, job wise. We were in a teeny tiny little cabin that wasn't even winterized, which was very sweet and nice, but it was very small and quaint. And then from there, we had a teeny tiny. We had a condo that was small but very pretty with glass. I don't think it was 1,000 square feet. Honestly, we had three kids there, and then a small house that wasn't much bigger when we had all five kids there, and then we got a little bit bigger house. So the point is not the size of the house or financial comfort or anything like that, because so much can be done with so little, and a lot of it has to do with getting rid of, right? And the quick fixes with paint. Paint is probably one of the cheapest ways to feel that new the new bling bling, feeling like something is new. And then this is again where color comes in, because changing up the color of walls can just be so huge. It can just feel like you're in a brand new living environment. It can just feel brand new, and then shift a few plants around and you won't even kind of know where you are, right? The other thing is and this goes again with the getting rid of, it's fun to make something really pop, in your apartment or house. So it can be a piece of art for sure. If you got a big, nice piece of art on the wall and you want kind of, people to notice that when they walk in, or just forget other people. You're just sitting on your own couch and you want to notice that. That means you got to like sort of limit the distractions around it. Kind of like weeding a garden. You got to get rid of everything else for that plant to look great. And again, I shouldn't really talk about plants looking great because that's something I'm working on. Or if you have a brand new oven and it's like a sexy red color or something like that, and you want that to be kind of showcasing your kitchen, well, then you don't want to overdo it with too much red because it takes away from whatever it is you're trying to get to pop. Or it's a really cool bonsai tree or whatever it is, to limit those distractions. And though it's cliche, the less is more thing is really, really true. And though I've always known that, I think just like it's very easy for me, like everybody else, to get in a rut. It's sometimes when it's just winter or cloudy, you just start to just not be focused on newness and making change. And certainly during the pandemic, that's been easy. And now, thankfully, hopefully, it looks like we might be coming out of that, I hope. And now is a really great time to just change it up in a big way. It's so refreshing and rejuvenating. And then lastly, at least for me, this so again, I'm not a home decorator, as I mentioned, though the creativity and the feng shui thing I can do, because I really get this wanting want to be in the room. And so that's not something that takes a lot of, attending a school of design or something. At least for me, I just feel it. Anyone can just feel it. Do I feel like I want to be in here? Or does the clutter hurt my head? And a lot of this has to do with, also, in addition to clutter, a room can even be semi-empty, and the furniture is not placed right. So that's another thing that I've kind of been aware of actually for a long time now, because of this feng shui thing. I'm just kind of dipping back into it now. The furniture placement has a lot to do with it, because we don't want to have, if you picture the entrance to the door, that's where the invitation is. That's where it's like, you know, uh, come in, right? And so we don't want the back of a dresser or a bed to be, blocking the energy of walking in the door and wanting to be in there. Furniture placement is huge. It should be like a catcher's mitt for people. Walk in and sit here, sit there. Corners can be tricky, and that's when I'm Still thinking about in our house, corners can be tricky because there's people don't want desks in at work as well. You don't want to be facing a corner. It's not natural. It makes me think of third grade. If you had a fresh moment and, the teacher said, oh, go stand in the corner. Like, who wants to be in a corner? It doesn't make any sense. And even if you have a tiny workspace or a tiny home space, you can still work with what you've got. I've worked with really small spaces to make them inviting. And again, it's something you just feel. And just ask yourself, do I want to be in here? If the answer is no, why? If the answer is yes, also it's why. What's going right in this room? Are you swinging towards almost 100% want to be in there? Or are you more in the middle? Because if you're in the middle or two-thirds, you might be on the right track, but there are some more things you can do to feel like you just can't wait to be in this room. And then lastly, as I sort of mentioned earlier, it's because we're in the middle of a reno right now, so it's easy for me to visualize because I'm kind of living in it. This is just my own strategy. Rather than making changes and just moving things, giving things away along the way. That's all good too. I mean, if you're in that mode, that's a good start. If at least for me, it can be very helpful. Kind of like pretend like you're moving, even if you're not, right? Just pretend like you're moving, and you have to get everything out of the house. It's just because new people are going to move in a week, and you're having a closing. Just pretend and take every single thing out of the one room. If it has to go in the back deck, front yard, or cram it into a closet, or another room, even if you know you're going to keep the whatever, and to actually be able to look at four or three empty walls and empty walls, and then this is the best way to really invite the creative juices to flow. This is a lovely place to just kind of wind up our conversation on, feng shui the home, feng shui the mind. Clutter without causes clutter within, they say. And so on that note, this is Kimberly Quinn signing off from Northern Vermont. Have a mindful day.